just for Jalen being back, what impressed you most about what he showed on Friday?
Well, all the things that everyone saw. I mean, his ability to extend plays, which we knew was always a skill of his, or an asset that he has, and so for him to do that right out the gate, he didn't play scared, right? And he didn't, run around out there gingerly, and he did what he had to do for the team, which is fantastic, and made some huge plays. Being able to keep plays alive, right, for us, at the end of the half, and the critical third down there when we were backed up. So those things, I don't want to say they're surprising, but they're, things that you perhaps could expect or maybe anticipate happening if they were, and those things didn't occur. So super proud of him and his performance.
I know you see him every day in practice, but when you think back to the bowl game against Arkansas to his first game this year, where do you feel like he's taken the biggest steps forward in this game?
Well, I've been asked that question a couple times, I think, in spring and then in fall camp again, and I would tell you that his understanding of what we're trying to do, schematically, and his ability to maybe get off a read really quick is at a high level right now, right? So those sort of things are good, and I've always said that we do what we're able to do offensively because of the players that we have, including the quarterbacks, what their capacity to intellectually handle all the stuff that we do, and he does a great job with it, really does.
Naturally, or extra film, or experience, or what's gone into
That's a good question. I think there's some inherent things that he has. I think when you look at quarterback play at any level, the wittiness, right, that needs to occur, if you will, right. I think some people naturally have that, and he does. But I'm not saying that to take away from the work that he does do. He spends a decent amount of time watching film and understanding and going through the calls, and we meet weekly and we go through every call in the call sheet and say why is this on here. He can regurgitate it back, and we go through, hey, what's the first third of the medium play going to be, and we'll go through that together and help pick that out, and so we kind of can anticipate what's going to happen as the game unfolds. But yeah, I mean, he works hard at understanding those things. Him and Jason both do. Those guys do a really good job, and Coach Zabrowski is fantastic in the room with them on making sure that they understand that stuff, and they do it, and they rehearse it over and over and over again mentally.
You don't need to think too long on this, but maybe it jumps out. Is it easy to you to know which of your offensive players watches the most film? Do you have an automatic answer for that? Do you know?
I don't have an automatic answer. It's probably, I'm not going to name a name because I can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can tell the ones who do it, because when we go out there, when we go to a walkthrough or we go to an installation, you can see who knows it. Hey, they're gonna do this, right? Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. Yeah. Right. And so, I think, I'm sure Coach already talked about this with you, but just an atypical schedule with the extra day. And so yesterday was, not a typical Monday for us. The guys were off, and it was really kind of cool to see how many guys wanted to come around and watch film on their own, and pop in the office and say things, and chime in about what they saw. And so it's good. Again, we're able to be as stressful as we are as an offense because they'll do that extra work, right? They don't want to be, the standard, look at us line up in these four formations.
Sure.
Right. And they get that. And so it's a credit to them what they're trying to do and how it helps us, helps them.
Why do you think the offensive line had so much success run blocking against Illinois?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that probably contribute to them. Again, if you would have told me, and I'm still in my mind, just so you know, right, this time of the week, typically it's so far already into the next opponent, so it's hard to sometimes think, even though it's just a couple of days ago. But if you would have told me in July, hey, you're going to have over 250 on the ground against these guys, and I'm like, all right, we'll take that, right? And so I think to that group, they prepared very intentionally, right, for the front that we saw. We wanted to do some things in the game plan that was going to put a lot of stress on some of their best players in terms of reading them and blocking them with different angles and all these sort of, give them a lot of different stimulus, if you will. And they were able to do that well. And I've commented before about their effort that they play with. And so I think when you combine all of those scenarios into a game over the course of how many ever hours a game is and number of snaps that we had, that has a wearing effect on a team. And so it was good for CS, we had the last drive to get a first down in the game. We've been in that situation before and we failed and get the ball back. So To finish it out that way and a couple downhill runs was awesome. So I think how they prepared themselves and them understanding what they were going to do schematically and how they were going to play it, and the effort that they played with would be why they had success.
And you mentioned being foreign in Nevada. Just what stood out to you about them so far?
Oh, they're multiple. You know, they want to bring. I think they're going to want to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to want to try to pressure the quarterback and give us a lot of different looks. And so they're in and out of a lot of different fronts. It's a lot different than Illinois, in the sense that Illinois was, you could probably tell where they're going to line up on every snap, and they played it so well. In this group, you know, there'll be a bunch of different fronts and a bunch of different pressures and coverages in the back half, and there's a lot of multiplicity that we need to be able to manage. Because I would anticipate them to want to bring a lot of pressure.
Hey Andy, what some people call their offense the West Coast or triple option. What do you call this offense? What would you call it?
KU?
Yeah.
Kansas offense? I don't have a name for it. You know, right? It's, if I'm going to give you the elevator pitch, and I think I've said this before, I'll tell you it's a multiple pro style offense that uses spread concepts. That's the elevator pitch, right? Emphasis on multiple, emphasis on pro style, in the sense that we use a lot of different personnel groupings and put them in positions to be successful, just like you would see on Sundays. Ask our receivers and quarterbacks and running backs and everyone to do things that they're going to ask pro players to do. Different shifts and motions and routes and run plays and run schemes. That's why that has that tag. But I don't have a name for it. Come up one. I'm open for ideas. So
Brett Bielema after the game said that, you know, they studied you guys last year and tried to figure out what you're going to do, and you came out with new stuff that they hadn't seen. Is it easier to do that, put these things in when you have a lot of experience?
100%. Like, you know, the little wrinkles, and I use the word little to us because on the other side of the ball, those can seem very big and stressful. And I know that he had commented on the different splits and alignments that we would use with linemen and different people. And that's a big deal to them. To us, it's just we got to walk through it a couple times and say, here's how it's going to look, and then we're going. So you can't get to that, right? You can't get to letter Z unless you get through the rest of the alphabet before that. And you can't get to the rest of the alphabet unless you got the guys coming back like we do. And so to your point, it is 100% accurate. We're able to do the things that we do because of the players that we have and the number of them that have come back and experience.
Going off of wrinkles, there was a play, I think, kind of right before the 10-minute mark in the third quarter, where you had like a 9-man motion shift. Essentially, you had half on out wide on the left, half in the middle, ran Devin on jet sweep. Where did that play come from?
Okay, well, there's 3 people that you can give credit for to that. One, the shift in the motion was Trevor Cardell's idea, right? So I thought about the players come in. We took it from them. And then 2 of our special team analysts, Zach Barton and Aaron Miller, right? And I told you guys before how we have people just scouring for film, and that's 2 of the people we have scouring for film, and they found some of that around. We said that's cool, so we put our own little flavor on it, and just do some things that add stress. Called it smoke break, because the lineman just got to stand over there and do nothing.
You saw Armage start for the first time since 2020. Just what do you think of his first performance for you guys?
He did well. You know, I think that, you know, after reflecting on the game, you know, him and Mike and Kobe give us some flexibility to be able to play all those guys at guard, and we will. But he did good. I've said all along, his size and athleticism is second to none, and so to have that on the field, it showed up at times. We have a clip that we show, and I forgive me if I've said this before here, but after every game in practice in fall camp and spring football, we have a called the rock chop tape. We point out that physicality on film, right, and effort, and he showed up on there, right, a couple times for what he was able to do in a couple outside zone plays, a couple big plays, a couple downhill runs, to be able to generate some movement the way he did. It was a big deal, so I was very pleased with him getting out there for the first time.
And you mentioned the 3-man rotation there. We saw Kobe get some snaps in the third quarter. How exactly do you guys time that? When do you decide?
It's hard. I tell you what, and if you had Coach Fuchs up here, Coach Lappold, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about O-line rotations and how we want to do it. The reality is you always want to try to get your best 5 guys on the field, and it can be a challenge sometimes to figure out who that is all the time. And we were pleased with how Kobe played in the first game. Didn't get until the third quarter of this game, but we anticipate him rotating in for more frequently, right? Because he deserves to play. He's been doing a good job in that. I'm not saying that to take away from the other guys. It's just if you can get a little rotation, it allows you some more flexibility, sustainability for the future. right? If something were to happen, you get guys. We've talked before about the importance of meaningful, live bullet reps in games, and that stuff has a compounding effect throughout the course of the year.
Coach, is there any benefit to playing a third straight night game, whether that's just routine for your players or receivers seeing the ball, whatever it is?
I don't know. I think that there's, obviously to have the last two that we had here where the booth is rocking is awesome. We're going on the road now. I think maybe Coach maybe mentioned yesterday, I'm not 100% sure about, the time difference and us playing pretty late out there, which would be a challenge. But yeah, there's some routine and some consistency that's involved with it. And I think that's good and healthy. But, the day and age, I mean, we're playing at 9:30, right? And next week, what I think 2:30, is that right? Our time, okay? Then who knows what the next week will be. So it's kind of, it's all right. It's great exposure for us. But there, to your point, routine and consistency are not the enemy. So if you can generate one, that's awesome. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. If we play 11 in the morning, we get done at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and as a coach, you finally get to go home and just like watch college football for a little bit, that's pretty fun. But they're not really considering that, I can assure you, when thinking about the schedule.
It's only been 2 games, but I wonder, are defenses doing something different with Mason? I know you want to spread it around, but it seems like he was open a ton last year, and he's got 3 catches this year. I'm sure it's not alarming, but are you seeing that?
It's probably as much to do with, the distribution, who else is being open.
Okay.
If you're in a situation where we're completing less than 50% of our passes, and then I'd be more concerned. But we're not forcing balls to anybody, and it's just a matter of where people are at within a progression on a given day. And I go back to some of those last year catches. He wasn't always the main progression either. And you find your way to him. So if you try to organize things and play calls in a way that a certain player might be designed to be the primary target, and may or may not be open based off of what the coverage gives you. So there's a lot of happenstance that's involved with who gets the target and the touches. But we've said all along, and I'm proud of our guys right now because there's a lot of ball distribution that's current. I mean, you look at the number of people who are repping and getting targets and touches, and it's good. And that'll have a compounding effect, as I said before, through the course of the year. Because we're not just targeting a single player, right? We're not just giving it to a single running back, okay? We're able to distribute it, which means you got to cover all of them and defend all of them.
I want to ask you on Luke too, Grim. Going back to when you met him all the way through now, anything about him surprise you? Maybe when you first saw him, you say, "I didn't know this guy had that." Or
his commitment to a mustache is fantastic and second to none. Luke Grimm, shout out for the great stash. No, his savviness as a route runner, okay, is what makes him the receiver that he is. And he is able to line up in every position. If you were to go back 2 years ago, towards the end of the season, we talked about Kwame Lassiter and the things that I would say about him. I would say the same things about Luke. Knows inside and out, knows all the positions and what they're doing. Has a very diverse route running, tree, and is able to go out there and do those things. And so you can move and groove him, and then obviously LJ and Skinner, and I know we've talked about Doug and Trevor Wilson and Tanaka, and as they're all growing, they're all sort of complement each other. And it's good that we, again, ball distribution, depth, meaningful reps for other players. In the long run, for us, it's going to be a big deal.
Sure. I know he's evolved and grown and developed and all that. Did he have that part that you just talked about when you first got him?
It's hard to say that because, if you can think back to how much, because you're in a phase of a young man's life where how much you change from the age of 18 to 21 is like significant. And so, I don't know how old he is now, probably 21 or 22, right? But to see him for 3 years, to see him grow and develop, there's certainly been growth and development. But has he had the fundamental understanding, to get to where he's at? For sure he had that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a willingness to want to learn it and understand it too.
Anything else for Coach?
Okay, appreciate y'all.